Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Welcome home, Brains. There's only one requirement to hang out on the edge, is that you open your big brain and close your small mind. Did you bring your thinking caps? It's time to put them on, because the conversation starts now.
I didn't know you had bunnies. Oh my goodness.
Bunnies. Where did you see my? I do, but where did you see my bunnies?
In your wheelbarrow.
Yes, I have 18 rabbits, 18 chickens, 2 ducks, 3 dogs, 2 axolotls, and 5 kids.
Wait, two axolotls? What
Axolotls.
what are those?
They're a salamander. They're a freshwater salamander. So they live in a freshwater aquarium, but I don't know if you've ever seen the little lizard-looking fish that have like ferns on their heads like this. They
Yeah,
look like little baby dragons.
yeah.
Those are axolotls.
Oh Lord, you are doing the most out there in Utah.
I am. I'm always being the most.
But I can't believe that you got 18 bunnies. Are they just doing it all the time?
Well, we breed them for meat. So we
Oh,
separate the males and the females and then breed them when we want another litter. And then um, they're a
okay.
little slower for meat animals. So we're not going to be raising rabbits for much longer, just chickens.
Just chickens. And
Yeah,
do you slay your own chickens?
I do it myself.
Girl, you know how to wring a neck?
I am. I'm the original redneck. I do.
No,
I
not
did.
redneck, ring a neck.
Oh,
Ring
ring
a
a
neck.
neck. I'm a redneck though, but yeah, that's how I used to do chickens. And when I was teaching my husband how to do it, he um couldn't quite get it to snap the neck. I know it takes some. Mm, I
But
think
you
it
know
just takes
what?
some grit.
It takes some savoir faire. It's not for punks. That's for sure.
You ever seen the movie The Help?
Yes,
Um, the woman who hired Minnie to come be her maid,
yes.
and she goes out there to get a chicken for dinner and she just grabs it. And that's how I used to be. I was just like, okay, which one are you for dinner? You, okay. And
Oh
then I
wow.
would just,
But now this is one thing I've always wanted to know is how do you get the cotton picking feathers off? Sometimes I buy chickens and there's still feathers on there. How do you get the feathers off?
some people will sit there and pluck all the quills out
Oh
and
Lord, that's a lot of work.
I use those gloves for dishwashers that have the texture on them for scrubbing pans. So
Okay.
after I pull all the quills out, I sit there and just scrub down that for all the little tiny down and feathers.
Hmm.
But honestly, I prefer to just skin them. It's easier. I don't like to eat chicken skin. So
Oh, okay.
I just skin them unless I'm gonna have that chicken for deep frying, then I keep the skin on it. But
Okay, well, what about the rabbits? What do you do? How do you get their skin off and fur?
you really want to know.
I want to know. Inquiring
Well,
brains want to know.
I mean, just like our skin, you can pinch your skin and it separates from the muscle a little bit. So you lift their skin up and you just make an incision in the fur. And rabbits are actually really easy because with just enough strength, their fur will just separate from their body
Hmm.
and it just peels off kind of all at once. The feet are a little bit harder, and then you have to remove the head. And I save the feet. I make rabbit's feet keychains and the pelts because it's beautiful white fur.
Yeah, I know. You
So
can make a nice quilt or whatever. Okay, and for
I
all you PETA people that watch my show, this probably ain't the one for you because this is, it's a
probably
top of the
not,
food chain.
but my children will like they'll talk about the animals that we have and I don't want to eat this for dinner because I knew that animal.
Oh
But it's
gosh.
it's like, do you think our animals have a good life in our backyard? They do. they're healthy, they're taken care of, they're put at their end very humanely and fast, and we respect their life and that they feed our family, and all of the parts that can be used are used. So,
Right. Well, they skin human beings here and they're not as humane. So I get it. I get it. Well, thank you for that education. Okay. We are
yeah,
going
anytime.
to Utah, Brains. I got so caught up in that I didn't even introduce my guest, but this is April Dickamore. And she's
Hello.
there with her family, and she's going to talk to us about grief recovery. She's going to talk to us about being a mother of four, some life lessons that she's learned. This is going to be a great conversation because it's going to be soft and easy. Yeah, we started out a little rough, but this is what it is. This is the top of the food chain. This is what people do to survive for centuries. And, you got to get with it. If you're a vegan or a vegetarian, we respect that space too, because you grow some produce too, don't you?
I do. I've got all my stuff growing inside ready. We just tilled up our garden yesterday. So we'll
Ooh,
be planting this weekend, and my desire is always to have just been, well, I want to learn it. I want to know how to do this. I want to do this myself and be as sufficient and independent as I can be. And I'm like, if it can be done that easily, I can do it. I'm going to do it.
I just
Some of
had
us stubborn.
I just had another guest on my show from Canada, and she has those indoor tower gardens for
Yep.
produce. So I said I'm gonna do that. Now I was gonna get some chickens because eggs here, girl, are $12 a dozen. They crazy.
Well, they rose to over
$12 a
six
dozen.
here.
Yeah,
You know
no,
what though?
I go to the Trader Joe's, and the Trader Joe's has them for 4 or 5,
It's still
and
too high.
it's too high. And then they talk about the bird flu. I told my husband, I said, let's get some chickens. He said, hell to the no. He was not gonna get no chickens because we have to take care of them. It's a lot of work taking care of that, and then taking care of a family. How did you find yourself in this space, April? Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I started raising chickens mm, about 15 years ago. Um, Chickens are actually a really easy pet to take care of. And it just takes a lot of startup. The coop, building them a space, all of the feeding and water equipment and things like that. But if you raise them for meat, or if you have enough eggs that you can sell to friends and family, and it definitely is worth it because they just take all of our kitchen scraps.
Yeah.
They will eat anything and everything. They keep our bugs out of our yard, so our backyard is always enjoyable. And we just basically open their coop in the morning and shut it at night. It's
Hmm.
it's not too difficult for chickens.
Okay. So now I wanted to know, how do chickens do it? How do they make love? Okay, so because again, I'm a city girl. I don't know nothing about that. There's a rooster that is up on top of the hill of where I live, and he crows every morning. And I love that. I
Yeah,
absolutely love that. It's just, I don't know. It's down home, but I've never seen chickens get intimate. So now
it's
they have,
fast.
so it's fast.
It's fast. Yeah.
So you got one rooster and you got 10 hens, and he just handles his business.
He takes care of every hen every day, and it's just
Oh,
really quick. It's like, okay, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine.
wow. Okay, but
Uh,
the hens
yeah.
still lay eggs,
Yes.
whether they're impregnated or not. He has to impregnate them for them to make a baby chick. I don't know. Give me an education. I don't know.
Well, I mean, a hen is a female bird. So just like you and I are females and we ovulate and have an egg production, they just do it every single day. With the rooster, he adds his contribution, and then it forms into a shell, and the chicken lays her egg. But actually, fertilization doesn't even start at that point, even because a chicken will gather 13 or 14 or 15 eggs in a nest before she'll actually start to sit on them. Once she starts to sit on them and the temperature incubates to her body temperature, then the eggs will start to fertilize.
Okay.
So if we just go collect them every day, there's no difference whether we have a rooster or don't have a rooster. So,
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Well, that's
yeah,
good to know. That's good to know. All
it's
right.
interesting.
So yeah, it is interesting. So continue with your growth and your development in farming and agriculture.
Well, it was something I started for my children, especially I was homeschooling them. And I wanted activities and education that they can learn hands-on. I lived in a rural area, so I thought, why not? I can have chickens. Because I grew up in the suburbs. I didn't know all of this stuff, but living out in a countryside and some land, I just wanted to learn it. So I'm just kind of the person that just kind of learns by the seat of my pants. But they brought me a happiness that I never really thought. I
Hmm.
didn't expect to be that happy about chickens, but I'll walk outside with my bag of Cheerios and I shake them and I call my chickens and they just come running from wherever they're at across the yard because they like their little Cheerios. And being outside all the time, and I started gardening, and my children and I were spending all day outside in our backyard, gave me a place to process a lot of pain that would otherwise just sit there and simmer. I could
Hmm.
work it out physically and I could sweat it out in the sun. And then it just became a place that we all enjoyed as a family. So that's always been something that I've tried to prioritize is building a backyard that we all spend a lot of time in.
So you had a struggle, growing up. You were telling me that it wasn't the easiest, and that
Mhm.
you had some grief. Can you share some of that with my audience?
Hmm. Well, where to even start? I mean, I guess I've had a lot of grief. I've had a lot of traumatic things happen to me since I was about the age of 5 years old. And, living in the world as a girl in this world, there are some dangerous things that many of us become victim to. Um, I was in high school when I first started to fall in love with writing. I wrote a poem that was submitted to a state competition. I didn't even enter it, but my teacher felt like it was a very moving piece, and he submitted it and encouraged me to continue with my writing. So writing is actually kind of what saved my life. It gave me a voice to speak the parts of me that were too difficult to say to anyone. I've tried, I'm not sorry. You said you're recording this and you can edit it a bit.
Oh, well, yeah, take your time.
Um, so I've lived through a lot of trauma that's tried to silence me or define me or break me, but I chose to write my feelings instead, and I explored a lot of different kinds of topics of the trauma that I have experienced with pain and the survival and then all the healing messy parts. So that has helped me to look back and actually see the growth that I've made. And in hindsight, seeing the lessons that I didn't know I needed at the time. Um, I've learned to find my own voice, and that has helped a lot in my personal life because I am a writer. I'm not a great speaker, but writing some things down helps me to get better prepared so I can set some boundaries. And I
Right.
practice saying, this is where I end, and you are not allowed to cross that.
Mm.
Um, so it's a messy process to say all that to people that have hurt you, to people that have wronged you. It's a grief, it's a loss, it's a loneliness, and having to mourn that version of myself who made herself small so that I would feel safe. Um, I guess it's just through stubbornness or just sheer determination to never be broken.
And that's
I,
resilience. You know, it takes courage, April. It takes courage. Again, it's like bringing that chicken's neck. It's not for chumps to be able to say, okay, this is a part of me, but this is no longer my stuff.
right.
This is not who I am. I'm bigger than this. Again, you played small because it was safe at that time. And now you feel vindicated that you were able to be like the phoenix and rise. But when did you come to that realization? Because with pain and grief and sorrow also is a lack of trust, people being honest, having integrity. Um, and what is the truth? What is your truth versus people's version of the truth? When did you come to that realization in your life that, this was enough for me?
I love what you just referenced because my youngest child, actually, her middle name is Phoenix.
Hmm.
And I gave her that name for that reason. Because when I was pregnant with her was kind of when the rug was pulled out from under me. My my world was just completely different. So when I first learned about my first husband's addiction and being pregnant, and there's a lot of other trauma going on that I don't want to speak about for people's privacy, but it was a battle with the legal system, with the courts, and my first husband decided to kind of check out with his drug addiction. And there I was, a mother with three young children to protect and a baby on the way, and I could not see my way forward. Um, I was talking to that baby one day. I talked to all the babies, and I was just trying to figure out what her name was, and the letter P was just so strong in my mind. So I
Mhm.
was reading every book, every name book to look at all the P names. It was like none of those fit. And then I was reading a book that mentioned the mythological character of Phoenix, and I just felt like that's always been me. No matter what my life has brought me, no matter how many times it has burned me or scorched me or broken me, eventually I healed. I rose again. I rose from ashes. And so I was determined that the choices of my first husband were not going to be the narrative of my life.
Right.
I was still the mother I needed to be, and chose that name to remind myself of that. So it was kind of during that period of my life where I was just like, this is a make or break decision. I can't follow him where he's going,
Right.
but this is also my family, and I've got to protect my family and navigate all of these many things going forward. So
So you
what
also
I
had to be a
learned,
warrior. You also had to be a warrior. You had to find, you had to find your superpower. Yeah, and I get it. But not only that, you also shared with me that there was a certain religious confine and context that you were involved in that also kept certain things suppressed because you got to go along to get along. It's a part of the program. It's a part of the doctrine. I'm not, and that's all of them. That's not
right,
one particular one. Some are more intense than others. Some of them we rage against. Some we conform to. Some we are totally brainwashed by and can't do anything but what we're told to do.
right,
So that was hard. That was a struggle too because you wanted to stay true to your faith. You wanted to stay honorable and respectful to God. The
Well,
what?
honestly, it was a faith that was just given to me. It wasn't one that I picked or found. It was
Mm,
taught to me because it was my parents' faith and it was their parents' faith, and I was like five generations of this.
okay. Okay.
So it's all I knew, especially growing up in Utah. That's all the culture really was in the
Mm,
80s. Um, but what I experienced as trying to be a religious person, as trying to follow all of those tenets and to contribute to the community and to be willing to accept anything that they ever asked of me, I never felt loved. I never felt loved. I didn't see what resembled loving thy neighbor, let alone loving thy neighbor more than thyself.
mm.
And what I felt was a lot of fear, a lot of control, a lot of shame and conditions to
Mm,
meet before I could even be worthy. But none of that felt like peace or divinity or true acceptance of who I am.
right.
And that idea that you have to pay to play kind of bothered me.
Mm,
Perform or conform just to earn a spot in heaven.
right.
It doesn't sound like a heaven that I want to strive to live in with others who have that same belief that I very much feel very different from them.
Mm,
But I know my heart doesn't feel the same as them.
mm,
So it's not something that ever was compatible for me. And I learned honestly that over time I've redefined what spirituality means to me. And for me, it's a different story than religion. I've studied almost all of them. I'm sure there's some that I haven't,
mm.
but humanity is what I would say my religion is. Um, I connect with people. I connect with the earth, with energy. That's where I feel like I'm at church, where I'm serving God, where I'm feeling God. I'm deeply intuitive and intelligent of my own earning. And I try to use that to love my neighbor and love
Right.
my
Well,
community.
and I tell people that they are, they go hand in hand. We get the religious doctrine, we get the book, we get the text, we get the preacher,
Hmm.
hallelujah, we get the choir,
Hmm.
we get all of that as a part of the control. Because, in my opinion, religion is a form of discipline. It's mind control. It's to keep you under control. It's not that that all of these great prophets, leaders, teachers, spirits have not walked the earth. I do believe that, but it has been so convoluted and diluted because I can read one text and get one interpretation. You can read another text and get another interpretation. And then it's like playing telephone. By the time it gets to the third person, the whole story has changed. And it's based upon our life experience. Spirituality, I believe that you ascend to that. Once you understand the doctrine, once you understand the discipline, that's a growth. That's a step up. And that's where I am in my evolution, is that I'm really into quantum physics now.
Yes,
I'm into the next frequency, not humanity, but beyond humanity, civilization. What is that going to look like in the next 5 to 10 years? It's moving fast, April.
it very much
It's moving
is.
at warp speed. You look at the moon, the stars, the alignment, the weather, the way that we treat one another, the way that we speak to one another, even the way that people are passing away. There's no long debilitating illnesses. You're not living necessarily to you 80, 85 and then just die in your sleep. No, it's instantaneous. The universe is calling
More
us.
so lately than it's ever been.
Ever been, ever been. And that too is in the doctrine. That is in the religious text. It tells us what is happening right now. So
Which
this
was
is
a
all of them, all of them.
They
You know,
do. They all speak of end times.
they
They
all
all
speak of
speak
end time.
of sin. They all speak of serving your creator. And like you mentioned, quantum physics, maybe all we have is this present moment right now. Maybe
That's
that's
all you have. That's all you've
that's
ever
all there
had.
is.
And that's the
And the
gift.
conscious experience that we're navigating together. And
That's
how
right.
are we helping each other navigate that? Ram Dass said, we're all just walking each other home.
Yeah.
So how good of a job are we doing just walking each other home? We don't, I don't think anybody can say or know for certain what is after this life. So I just focus on my intention of now, of loving my family, of loving my friends, serving my community. And whatever it is, I think the sacred lives in our ability to be present and to be kind and to tell the hard, bold truth about what hurts us and what we're still working on healing and what we all need to heal together as
But
humanity.
that's why they call it the present,
Because
because
it's a
it is right
gift.
now. It's the gift.
It's the gift.
It's the gift. And it's right now. And to settle into that and to, you know, it's like, no, I'm not really ready to pass away. I'm living my best life at 63, honey. It's on and popping. But I have come to terms with the fact that if I am called, um, then I want to be a faithful servant. When
Mhm.
my mother transitioned, you talk about grief, I was bent, but I was not broken. It was beautiful. I played my singing bowls, and the universe, I could feel it opening up for the angels to come and get her. I laid my chest upon her chest, and I felt her very last heartbeats. She gave me permission to stay. I gave her permission to go. She lived with us for 30 years, and it was cool. Everybody had their own space. Everybody got along. Mr. Magnificent loved her. She loved him. She was a grandma to my daughter. Everything was fine. But everybody doesn't get that. A lot of
Yeah.
people are going to struggle. What do you say to the person that's struggling right now?
Hmm. Well, I mean, it depends on the type of things that they're struggling with.
So
You
when I
know,
ask that question, what I'm saying is overall, because the struggle is real. Okay.
right.
The struggle is ever present. Drugs, alcohol, finance, self worth, abuse, parenting is all a struggle. How do we grab hold to that realization that there's a problem and that there is something that I can do to move forward?
Well, I think moving forward and healing begins when we believe our pain matters enough to name it. So then when we can name it, we can address it, we can analyze it, we can dissect it, we can sit with it, we can talk with supportive people about it. And then we start to learn a little bit more about how we can navigate that. I want people to know that I'm a mess. Honestly, I'm a mess in the most human, honest way. My life has taught me that more about what love isn't than what love is.
Mm.
I think that's why that shaped the way I show up in the world and with compassion, with truth, with kindness. Um, I think everybody has a deep need to feel safe and to have a space to feel vulnerable. And I have been that space for many people during some of the hardest times in their life, even though I was going through something super difficult. But because I was open about it, it helped other people to know, okay, this person understands what I'm going through that I'm too afraid to talk about because I'm too afraid of the judgment I might have from my family or my coworkers or my children or whatever. So, what it is to me is just being yourself and naming the pain, first of all,
Right.
and learning to stop saying I'm sorry. Women say that a lot. I'm sorry, I'm just having a really difficult day. I'm sorry, it's just some memories that are pulling back up in my brain. No, I've learned to say I I don't say I'm sorry. I've learned to say I need a moment to process what I'm going through right now because this isn't about you, but it is affecting my emotions and I don't want to react toward you. So I just need a little bit of space to take this time. And what that is to me is it's loyalty, it's raw emotion, it's an unshakable belief that when life makes you feel like it's going to break you can still come back stronger, maybe softer, but braver. And worry has never killed anybody. Worry serves no purpose, but it distracts us from mourning or grieving and moving on, or it distracts us from healing and finding peace and forgiveness. So when we get caught up in the race of worry, trying to control it all, is this prison that we make in our own brains. Um, so I try to talk about the hard things with kindness and um, just raw, unfiltered honesty because I've lived through them. I know other people are living through them, and I know how I've been treated or talked about or assumed. They probably experience the same things. It always hurts. But what does every single person truly need? They just need some
Well,
love. They need some
they need
support.
some love, but love is very subjective. Love is very individualized. People, you know, sometimes love is just to be left alone.
There are some things with boundaries with love, but even just learning to love themselves, learning to say, I didn't deserve this. I don't need to keep putting myself through this experience, learning to love themselves. I don't need to love everybody. I can't love everybody, but I can hold that space and teach love and teach kindness and teach compassion and forgiveness and things like that I learned in religion. I learned in a lot of different religions. They all kind of do that. And it was just a core part of my heart. Um, Helping others to just reclaim their voice after
Mm.
experiencing a lot of trauma, people that suffer from PTSD, from all forms of violent things they may have lived through, and to stop apologizing for their sensitivity or their depth or their boundaries. And I just hope that they learn how much freedom there is when you find the courage to be able to talk for yourself instead of letting other people's talk about you.
Absolutely. Talk with me, not about me. Um, you talked about a couple things that I want to kind of to
Sure.
touch on. You talk about your writing.
Yeah.
What are you doing with all of this soul searching? What are you doing with all of this clarity, wisdom, pain, sorrow? Are you writing a book? Are you coaching? Are you teaching? Are you, what are you doing with all of this?
I've kind of done all of that in a little bit of after my first husband died, I needed to take some time to just really heal the living in survival mode and trauma and the mental breakdown that I had had after he died. It took a while to rebuild the mental burnout, um, to rebuild my assertiveness and ability to create some boundaries. I've worked with, I started working with treatment centers for substance addiction because of the way that my first husband struggled. I understood the depth of his pain. Um, Having that that deep of a experience in seeing it firsthand and seeing him live through it firsthand and knowing what people go through really made me want to do something with some of my college degree. And I started working with addiction treatment centers. And then when I moved to Utah, I started working with youth detention centers that were private facilities, teaching teenagers some basic things. So I've tried
Yeah,
to serve my community.
my nephew was in one of those in Utah, and I've got
There's
a
some there's some
yeah,
pretty
yeah,
sketchy
yeah,
ones in
yeah,
Utah. You know,
yeah,
Paris
yeah.
Hilton has talked about
I
it.
got it. Yeah, yeah. We don't have to talk about that online, but
Mm.
it's more than a notion, okay? It's more than a notion, especially for a young black man. You know, it was a challenge, but he made it
I've
out.
just yeah, and I've just tried to give back where I can with what I know, with what I've learned, with what I've lived through.
Okay,
And I see an opportunity, and if I can fill that need, I try to. Um, that
that's a lot to
chapter.
on. Well, that's a lot to onboard, considering what
Mhm,
you've been through. A mother of four, you know, suffering the trauma that you've been through. To be able
mhm.
to give is a lot, and so I commend you and I give you your flowers right now because a lot of people would have checked out themselves. They would have just they would they would have given up. They said, you know what, there's nothing left. I've given all I have to give. I've done all I can do, and I'm done. But you're not done. You know, we're not gonna stick a fork in it. It's not over. Let's ask you some fun questions. How about that?
Sure, let's do it.
If I came to Utah to visit you today, where would you take me?
It's springtime in Utah, so I would take you up to, oh, there's this really pretty place in my city that has a really easy trail to walk. I've had back surgery and, I'm not the most athletic person, so it's a really easy trail to walk. And then there's waterfalls from all of the mountain snowpack that is draining down into all of our waterways.
Wow.
And so I would take you to see some spring mountain flowers and waterfalls and the baby buffalo that are being born right now.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's pretty cool. If you were a tool in a toolbox, what tool would you be and
Our
why?
tool. I think maybe a hammer. I guess if we're not talking power tools, because I have used a hammer, the flat end of one of the claws, I've used that
Right.
to undo a screw. You can
Mm,
take a nail out or you can put a nail in. I, it's very versatile. It's strong. It's
okay.
impactful.
I didn't say we weren't talking about power tools because I want to be a drill. I'll be a power drill. I
You want
sure
to be
will.
a drill?
Exactly, because I want to punch holes into things. I want to be able to screw it down and lock it down.
Yeah.
I want to be able to unscrew things that have
Yeah.
been bolted down. So I think I would be a power drill. If you were an appliance in the kitchen, what appliance would you be?
Kitchen. I hate the kitchen. Maybe a crock pot. It takes me so long to get motivation. I used to live in the kitchen. I used to go hard. I used to home birth and homeschool and had my garden and was like the
Wow.
pioneer woman. I could do it all. Look at me. I could bake bread from scratch.
Mm.
So my kitchen's not my favorite place to be, honestly. I think my favorite thing in the kitchen might be the wine bottle opener.
I get
My
you.
husband is the chef, so he does more of the cooking. I do the ordering.
Yep,
Um,
that works for you. I get it.
yeah, but a
You,
crock pot, a little slower to get there. Doesn't take a whole lot of work. It's not too intimidating. I just I like something to be easy and simple.
I'll be the refrigerator. I just want to sit somewhere and chill.
And everybody comes to you.
Everybody comes to me all day long.
Mm-hmm.
There's always something in me that you want. And then we can, when we're not ready for it, we can put it in the freezer.
As a woman, aren't you already a refrigerator, though?
Yeah, I'm a total refrigerator. What would you say to a 25-year-old April Dickmore if you had a conversation with her right now?
God, at 25. Oh, at 25, I already had two children. And I think I may have been expecting my third. At 25, I would have said, your main purpose is not to just be a servant to somebody else. You can find joy in that. You can find fulfillment and bonds and purpose. But I didn't know who I was. I had never really experienced the world. I'd never experienced a lot of diversity. I didn't know who myself was. And I think I would tell 25-year-old April, carve out some space to learn who you are so it's not so hard in your life later on.
Well, it's like working with clay.
Mm-hmm.
Just have a big
Easier when
block,
it's softer.
and then you just have to mold it, and you got to keep spinning it, and you got to keep adding water to it to shape it and mold it. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
you've done a great job, and I'm
Thank
very
you.
proud of you. And thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for being a guest here. Tell my brains how to get in contact with you. Are you going to be coming out with a audio book, coaching program?
Well, well, I do have several publishers that are interested in some chapters that I've sent them. And they've requested that I send them the full manuscript now. So a lot of a lot of butterflies with that, but I feel like um, if we can go back just really quick to religion a little bit,
Yeah,
um, the story of sorry, let me fix my going back to the conversation about religion a little bit. I'm not a religious person in my life, but I have studied so much of it. And I see the impact that it had on all of those people's lives, and the story of Joseph in the Bible that was
yes.
sold off by his brothers. So I had this woman once in church who was giving a lesson on the gospel doctrines, and it felt very obvious to me that her remarks were kind of directed at me because I was going through one trial after another. A lot of people didn't really know the depth of my first husband's struggles, but he had a lot of health issues. He was always in the hospitals. And so she says during her lesson, if you're having these many trials in your life, maybe you need to ask yourself if you're being worthy to be blessed. Maybe God's just holding your blessings in layaway until you prioritize Him.
Wow.
So my hand was just hot in the air. And I said, so what does that mean about Joseph? Because Joseph was the most loved by his father. He was his father's favorite, and it angered his brothers. So they sold him into slavery. Did he sin? Did he do anything wrong to deserve that? And then in slavery, all the things that he went through and was accused of sexually assaulting Potiphar's wife, and then he was imprisoned and he was about to be hanged. Not one time does the story of Joseph ever mention Joseph saying, why me? Why me? And a lot of people have asked me that. Have you ever asked yourself, why me? Why does all this stuff keep happening to me? And I think Joseph was the perfect example of just letting go, trusting his inner knowing, trusting the gifts that he had, and just being himself in every situation that he was. And ultimately, because of who he was, because he stayed truthful, because he was a good-hearted person, he was seen by Pharaoh and brought out of his death sentence and served next to Pharaoh as the second most important person in Egypt. In that position, it allowed him to help his family, who were the first ones to betray him in the first place, help them to survive a famine. Not once did Joseph say, "Why me?" So the one time I ever started to kind of think about that, why me, my mind immediately stopped and I thought, why not me? I would rather it be me than my sister. To have my sister call me and tell me these things she's going through would break my heart. To have my best friend or uh, my neighbor that's experiencing this in her home. So I never
Well, the
asked why
truth of the
me.
matter is that April, it's not personal.
No.
It's not
So
personal.
what I learned was, why not me? I learned I have more grit than I realized. I learned I had more ingenuity than I probably would have taken me a lot longer to figure that out about myself. I learned I learned how to keep going. And the word coincidence does not mean luck. The word coincidence actually means to coincide with.
Mhm.
So to set your trajectory towards something that trajectory is already set, eventually you are going to coincide. That's what I stayed focused on instead of why me? Why am I so unlucky? Why this? Why that? I said, why not me? This is what I can do. This is what I will do. Don't tell me what I can't do. And setting my trajectory toward things that I wanted to coincide in my life. And so I'm grateful that I was strong enough to ask myself that question, why not me?
Right.
Because I never knew how tough I was until I asked myself that.
Well, and then you woke up, and again, you rise like the phoenix. Thank you so much for being here on the edge with me. I'm trying to find my postcard. I'm always looking for my postcard. I want to thank you for your courage, for your grit, for your love, your compassion, because it's a lot. It is a lot. And you are worthy and you are deserving, just like a whole lot of other people that are out here that are struggling. But we got space for you here on the edge, brains. We love you. We want you to rise. We want you to feel good. We want you to, sometimes you can't feel good about a situation, but if you understand it, it's like a math problem. You may not understand all of the language of the math, but one day you're going to get the answer right. And how are you going to feel? You're going to feel real good about yourself. And if you are a part of a religious doctrine, the only thing that I can say, I'm not going to talk about anybody's religion because I'm all for about a God. But read it for yourself. Have your own personal relationship, not the one that's through Sister Ann, Sister Mary, not even the
Your mom
pastor.
or your
Right.
auntie. Yeah.
Read it for yourself. Go deep in meditation and prayer and solitude and get the answers for yourself because universe, God, universe, spirit will speak to you directly. Will
Hmm.
speak to you. Trust me, I know. I
I think
know.
that
I have a
resides in all of
conversation every
us.
day. All of us, every
Yeah.
one of us, even atheists. When something happens, what do they say? Oh my God.
Well, no, I consider myself an atheist because I don't believe in a theology.
Okay.
I don't think that anybody knows all of the truth. Um, so I guess I would mostly be defined as an agnostic atheist. I don't know, and I don't know that anybody knows, but I do believe
I
in the
think there's
best of
well,
all of those parts.
I think there's people walking among us that know. Absolutely. I do that have had experiences, out of body experiences, transformational
I
experiences,
have.
communications. I do believe that they know. And I do believe in God, but it is a God of all understanding. It is a God of love, agape love. And I struggle with that, that unconditional love that you just blanket among people. My love is conditional. And I'll tell folks in a heartbeat, I'm not going to lie to you. you know.
Yeah. You're
And
deserving the
I'm not
love that
and
you
I'm
get
not yeah, and I'm
constantly.
not very trusting, you know. I give you 65, 75%, and then you got to work it up. But that's
Hmm.
the same for me too. But that's my boundary. That's my safe point. So thank you again, April, for being here on the edge with us. Come back. Let us know when the book is released, the chapters. This
Yeah.
is this is soft. It's easy. It's not overthinking. It's not too heavy. It's not too heavy that we all can't carry, like those eggs in the chicken basket. Thank you, Brains. Go in and love, like, share, and subscribe here on The Edge. There's other edgy conversations that we're talking about. We've got love, we've got finance, we've got parenting, we've got sexuality, we've got quantum physics, all kind of stuff. So go in
Hmm.
and look. It's about 2,000 episodes. Thank you so much, April, and we will keep in touch, okay?
Thank you. I hope you have a fabulous day.
All right. Love you, Brains. Be good to yourself. I'm counting on you.